Please allow me to introduce our moderator today, Peggy Dold. Peggy is CEO of Navigation Partners, LLC, and Navigation Partners Media, PBC, companies that provide business development advisory services to talent, right holders, technology, entertainment, and media clients. Peggy has 20 plus years of experience as a music executive in the Anglo and Hispanic music industry. She's lived and worked in all of the major music markets, New York, Miami, LA, and she's currently based in Nashville, which we are excited about that. Prior to reactivating Navigation Partners LLC and Navigation Partners Media, PBC, Peggy was Senior Vice President and Director of Music and Entertainment for Iberia Bank, First Horizon Sports and Entertainment Division. Peggy has also served as Vice President of International for the Univision Music Group, Talent and Artist Relations Consultant for MTV Networks Latin America, Head of Artist Relations for Crescent Moon Records, which is a joint venture between Emilio Estefan and Sony Music International, and Vice President of Marketing, Island Independent Label Group, where she oversaw U.S. domestic marketing for the Mango, Fourth and B-Way, Island Red Label, G Street Independent, Great Jones, and Smash Label imprints. Peggy is active in the music and entertainment industries and currently serves on the boards of the Abbey Road Institute, U.S. in Miami, of the New Dialect Contemporary Dance Company in Nashville, and of the Independent Alliance for Artists' Rights based in London. She's also a proud member of the Country Music Association, the Music Business Association, NARAS, the Grammy Organization, the Latin Grammy Organization, American Guild of Musical Artists, Media, Entertainment, and Technology Alliance, Nashville Association of Talent Directors, the Other Nashville Society, the American Association of Independent Music, Association of Independent Music Publishers, and the Florida Banking Association. Wow, what a busy lady. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Peggy Dold. Take it away, Peggy.
Thank you, Rita. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I really want to thank the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce for inviting Alex and I to have this conversation. For me, it's an absolute delight because we're going to be talking about two of my favorite subjects, music and money. I will tell anybody who will listen that if it's not a business, it's a hobby. So to that end, I'd like to introduce Alex. Upon recognizing the sizable need for funding options that cater to music professionals and allow creatives to retain their copyrights, Alex Heiche founded Sound Royalties in 2014 and serves as the company's chief executive officer. His innate passion for music and strong roots in the music industry have greatly contributed to the firm's success. Alex is a strong and outspoken music advocate, supporting the growth of songwriters, producers, and artists, as well as highlighting the importance of musicians being compensated for their work while retaining their music rights and royalties. Alex possesses decades of experience in providing funds and finance raising strategies to music creatives, large annuity recipients, and professional athletes. He has worked with leading music industry professionals, including Grammy Award winners, platinum recording artists, and notable music industry executives in every genre, and always with the utmost discretion and privacy. A respected thought leader in the music business, Alex has shared his knowledge and insights at many industry events with organizations, including the Recording Academy, BESLA, the American Bar Association, the Music Managers Forum, AIMP, Cutting Edge Law Conference, NYC3, Sync Summit, as well as with music students at universities, including Vanderbilt and Belmont. Additionally, Alex's expert opinions have been featured in top publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Billboard, Rolling Stone, Music Business Worldwide, The Tennessean, Music Connection, and Digital Music News. Prior to founding Sound Royalties, Alex held executive roles in specialty finance firms and high-tech software companies. Alex graduated with a Bachelor of Science from the University of Maryland College Park. He is a member of the Recording Academy, the Gospel Music Association, the Americana Music Association, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a lifetime member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and Nashville Songwriters Association International. Let's get started. Alex, can you tell us about Sound Royalties and what the company does?
Sure. Thank you for that intro, and thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for having us. Sound Royalties is a specialty finance firm. We just the basic concept is we provide funding to creatives. We specialize in royalty financing. So what does that mean? If you're a creative that earns $5,000 or more, you can come to us and reinvest in your career and get access to funding for personal or professional reasons. What's really different about our company is our three core principles. One, we don't take ownership of the copyrights. We have a long-standing practice of never taking ownership of the copyrights. Two, we don't do what's called 100% recoupment. For those not necessarily familiar with the music industry, it's predominantly you take an advance from a publisher, a label, or a financial services company. You don't see a penny until you recoup that advance. And so that can often be their primary source of income. So what we do is we allow ongoing income to flow through to the creative, so they're not forced to sell later or put in a bad spot. And then also we provide multiple funding options, depending on how much time or how much money they're looking for, how long they want to spread it out. And our pricing is all based on risk. So what we're doing is we bring the music industry truly an artist-friendly way to access capital. Another key point is we're not a publisher, we're not a label, we're not a distributor, and we take no control over their creative decisions. We're just here to help them get funding, the funding that they're looking for.
Okay, so that was a lot of detail. And I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. Is there anything else that you could add with regard to how it works? Like, what is the actual process?
Oh, okay. So if you're a creative that's earning that income stream, at least 5,000 or more, but we work with those earning millions. So it's the whole spectrum. We're just trying to help as many people as we can. And the reason for that bottom threshold is if you look at music royalties, think of an old house that has been shut down for a long time, and you come on and you turn the tap on for the first time. What does it do? It sputters until it starts to flow steadily. And so we have that bottom threshold specifically. That's when we start to see royalties kind of start to flow rather than start and stop. But it's as simple as you go to our website, you submit an application in your streams, we analyze them, and we'll even search for uncollected royalties for that creative and come back with several options. Once they choose one of the options that best works for them, we process the transaction, and then just prior to funding, we have an independent person from our client's compliance department actually do a recorded closing call with the creative and walk them through it. Because we've all heard of in the music industry, you've got stacks of contracts. Do you really understand what it means? So yes, we do the paperwork, but then on top of that, prior to funding, we have an independent person do a call to walk them through it again and make sure they fully understand what they're doing and that it best suits their needs. And then and only then, the funds are wired into the account within 24 hours of completing that call. There's no personal guarantees. There's no hard credit checks. It's simple and it's non-invasive.
Wow. So in addition to royalty financing, what other services does Sound Royalties offer?
Due to the growing demand of our clients and what we're seeing in the industry now, and we also have key relationships with the other industry partners, we recognize the opportunity to offer some more services recently, such as our recently announced catalog sales support services. So while we don't purchase the copyright, creatives can, and we want them to keep them if they make the decision that it's best for them to sell their copyrights. We stand by them and offer them a few services. One, that's typically a decision to sell the rights to their baby, what they created. There's typically a monetary reason behind that. So what we offer is a short-term financing solution so they're not in a rush. They can take their time and find the best home for their catalog and get the most. So we want them to shop. The second thing that we can do is we can provide them guidance on what their catalog is worth, who the ideal buyers would be. because we don't buy them, but in our unique position, we have thousands of streams flowing through us. We know who's selling, but we also know who the buyers are because they come to pay us off for any advances they may have outstanding with us. So we can point people typically in the right direction for the best buyers for their types of work.
And do you actually also do the valuation?
We do evaluation for internal purposes for financing, and we'll give them, an understanding of what we see the market doing with their types of things. But I want to be careful to say that it's not a formal, appraisal or evaluation of their work.
Okay. So what inspired you to start the company?
Oh, wow. As a kid, I was musically inclined. I played half a dozen instruments. I did 0 sports. My dad was a scientist. And so we didn't even watch sports. And I was literally a band geek, and I loved it. And I did my music, and I just wanted to ride my bike and play music. In college, that's when my life kind of did a change. I was part of a software group. We went from 10 people to offices in 15 countries almost in the blink of an eye. And that's while I was still in college. And it was a lot of fun. That was niche. And so I thought I was a software guy, and that's what I was going to be forever. And for the next decade, I did software for petrochemical, chemical, nuclear power plants, soft testing and debugging tools, and a host of other things. And it was fun. Then in 2003, a friend and contact came to me that was starting a finance company and asked for some help. And I said, that's not me. And a few months later, he came back and we started talking. I was like, well, what if you did this? What if you did that? And the next thing I know, I got sucked into that. And that took me all the way to 2013, where this story comes to play. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I wasn't passionate about it. I like to say that they call this, what we're doing, Peggy, you and I, work, but it's not. It's because we love what we do. And so I thought back to my life, what was I most passionate about? What did I like? And it was music and the music industry. And unlike most people, I didn't have an idea at the time what it would be, but I just made a conscious decision. And that conscious decision was, I'm going to jump off a cliff and I'm going to build an airplane on the way down. And that airplane's going to be a music company. It's going to make it or I'm going to crash, right? And that's what I did. And the first thing I did was come to Nashville. It just made logical sense because that's the heart of music. And I visited every banker that I could find, then every private financial services company. And I said, I'm coming. Can we work together? What do you guys do? What do you turn down? And I was quite surprised. It took me about 14 months, but what I found in the industry was the industry was made up of songwriters, artists, producers, labels, publishers, managers, lawyers in this ecosystem of the music industry. The banks were not considered part of it. Their entertainment bankers were, and the private financial services companies were not considered part of it. And I tried to figure out why. And the reason being is the banks had entertainment divisions that are fantastic to this day and were, but they had certain constraints that they had to deal with, banking regulations. And so they serviced a certain key part of the market, but there was a huge part of the market that wasn't being serviced. That market was left to the private financial services company that were really operating like pawn shops. They were taking people's copyrights in default, overextending them possibly, and even just buying them outright. And so I saw a need for a truly artist-friendly solution. And I took the time that was necessary to really build a strong foundation of industry goodwill and trust, and slowly build Sound Royalties up to where it is today. And you know what? We're just starting.
Well, I have to say, aside from what an impressive story, that you are probably the only music executive with whom I've spoken over the last years who put the word petrochemicals in the sentence when you were explaining what you've done, honestly. Well, okay, so here we are in the pandemic, right? So especially during the pandemic, many small businesses have found, and worked to find creative ways to thrive and to grow. Do you find that sometimes creatives fail to think of themselves as small businesses and therefore don't really seek the kind of financial options that would be available to, for example, businesses in food or retail?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't think that they fail to think of themselves as small businesses, but I think their expertise and their job, their livelihood is to create. This is why, as they grow, they have teams around them that they surround themselves with to understand and take control of the business side of things. The smaller ones, if they did look at themselves as a small business, they would see the value and importance in funding their business without selling the store or its assets, right? Which is predominantly what the industry had thought was the only way to get funding if they weren't going to give away their rights. So financing allows them to access capital and catapult their careers, yet keep ownership. And as they have the opportunity to do this as independents, they can do it that way, or get to the point where they want to be signed by a label or publisher. Or if they're already signed, sometimes they want to do things themselves, and they still can. Last year, there were a lot of new opportunities if you want to think about from a business perspective. During the pandemic, we saw the PPP programs, the Paycheck Protection Programs, the opening of unemployment benefits to self-employed individuals, which a lot of songwriters are. Many creatives did not take advantage of this or even understand it. I know the Chamber of Commerce was out there trying to help people understand it. I know that a lot of the banks were, but we could only get the word so far. Unfortunately, we're still in the same position this year without all those benefits that are still happening. And many of these creatives are holding their breaths until things kind of bounce back. So it's important that they know that there's other options. And it's important they understand this is the music business. And it's the successful creatives that leverage both words, music and business.
Yeah, well, and then, okay, so we're still in the impact of the pandemic, and you've got this very specialized point of view based upon your experience and your perspective of what you're seeing and experiencing. What do you think is the impact that the creatives are still seeing to their bottom line as a result of the pandemic?
So the obvious answer is live revenue disappeared. We hear it in the news, we see it. 55% of global music industry income, which was about $10.43 billion in 2018, and was projected to grow to $31 billion by 2022, was live income. And that all just disappeared. And it still hasn't come back. The less obvious impact was on royalties. Streaming has become an important part of every creative's portfolio of income. And up until recently, we were still seeing creatives that weren't collecting their digital performance royalties because they didn't account for much. They were out on tour, pulling in hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. But today, streaming royalties account for over 85% of the industry's revenue, and creatives can no longer overlook this key piece of income, as well as their neighboring rights or their other uncollected royalties. So based on the thousands of data points that we have, and we see on a daily basis, the leading indicators that we saw last year showed that performance income was down about 8 to 30% in the second quarter compared to previous quarters. So to directly answer, that's what we were seeing in terms of the impact to creatives. $0 on live, and on performance royalties, 8 to 30%. The largest disparity we observed was the difference between domestic and international. Domestically, we saw royalties decline in the high single-digit range during the second quarter compared to previous quarters. Internationally, we saw them decline 20 to 40%, leaving us to feel that the COVID impact on international performance income applied to domestic had around about 30%. But that was second quarter. As we close the books on 2020, reports are showing that streaming was up year over year, and we're seeing that the initial downturn in the second quarter rebounded as we rounded out the year. So live hasn't come back, but we're seeing the royalty flows go right back up to where we thought. It was more of a minor displacement, we think, or temporary, it's a better word.
So I remember at the beginning of the pandemic that Sound Royalties made an announcement about a special fund that it set up. If I remember correctly, it was $20 million. So I wanted to know, could you speak about that, about this fund that was launched to help these artists as the pandemic began to impact the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So while there were government programs being put into place, we wanted to do our part to help the creative community and would be another resource. You know, we came up with the $20 million fund that was a zero cost, zero fee funding source for the music community. The program was so successful that we ended up extending it another month since we were still getting so many creatives coming to us to take advantage of the offer. You know, and we're happy we did it. While it turned us away from our core business, it was the right thing to do at the right time. And that always feels good to do something meaningful and impactful. Interestingly enough, it wasn't just the small unknowns that took advantage of our fund. Some of the top songwriters in the world, like Steve Dorff, who's written hits with Celine Dion, Blake Shelton, Ray Charles, Kenny Rogers, and so many more, took advantage of the program, and he came out and spoke publicly about the program and how it helped him, which was great to see. And so many others did that unless they talk about it, we won't talk about it, but it was heartwarming to see.
Well, and on that note, I mean, since Sound Royalties was founded in 2014, the company's worked with people like Lil Wayne, Rich Robinson from the Black Crowes, and Pitbull. So, you know, how is it? I mean, what does it mean to work with this level of, you know, superstar, iconic artist?
It's incredible to be part of something, you know, with such an amazing roster of recognizable names. You know, as I mentioned, in the financing and banking world, you very well know, Peggy, everything's confidential. So for every name you mention and you see, there are countless others that we don't talk about. You know, when DJ Khaled spoke out publicly about us, it's like, great, there's another one. But behind him, there's so many others that choose not to or haven't yet. And that's great. And we understand, and we're here for them. But there's so many more. And aside from the superstars that we all know and love, we've worked with hundreds of songwriters behind the scenes, you know, countless indie creatives just hitting their stride, independent labels, independent publishers. And it's amazing to see that we're tied to so many works like Friends in Low Places. Great song, Empire State of Mind, or some of the Zach Brown hits, and so many more. So when I turn the radio dial or I'm streaming and some playlist and I hear something, I was like, yeah, we're tied to that. We help that. It just feels amazing.
That really, I mean, I completely understand that. I know that, you know, for the last year and a half, when I was with Iberia Bank, going through this pandemic, the most, I don't know, the most profound feeling was being able to help our people. Yeah. And that was just, you know, at least we were, you know, you're in a position to do that and your team is doing that. And, you know, our people need help, and just being here for that community, that's a very special place to sit in. And I just really commend you for that.
Yes.
You know, Wyclef Jean is another name with whom you've worked. And I know that you've partnered with the Carnival World Music Group Venture to amplify music in developing countries in Africa. This is very special to my heart because I've worked in Africa, and I can understand what the needs are there. So I guess my question to you is, can you discuss that initiative and the importance of empowering music across the globe, which, as we all know, pre-streaming, it wasn't as fluid as it is now. And now with streaming, you know, those silos and those borders have dissipated. And now we have not only the possibility to expose and exploit and promote and market, but to reap the monetized benefits as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess nobody's disputing anymore that we've entered a streaming world and streaming's the new platform to stay. But up until recently, I was still hearing, well, it's going to go back to this or that. And I'm like, I don't know. But yes, streaming is definitely the undisputed VHS over beta war. Or DVD, what was it? VHS beta, right?
Yeah, it was VHS beta.
Yeah. Streaming it also, aside from that, we were also hearing that streaming was having a negative impact on the music industry, paying fractions of pennies, which is true. But streaming is having a lot of positive effects on the royalty flows, just basically by taking down those walls you talk about and legitimizing the consumption of music. If you think about it, historically, we saw a majority of music income come domestically. Internationally, a lot of the income didn't exist due to piracy practices. And so you saw money flowing from the United States to the United States, some from Europe to the United States. And since most of the money was here, most of the creatives were here. And their music was the worldwide most important music. We created global superstars. Now we enter into a streaming world where piracy isn't as an issue. Look at India, 1.36 billion people, 17% of the population. Look at China, 1.39 billion people, 18% of the population. That's 35% of the world that wasn't predominantly paying for music. Now, not paying $10 a month, but they're paying 10 yuan, 10 rupees. Look at sub-Saharan Africa, 1.1 billion people, 14% of the population. You put all those together, you now have about 50% of the world's population was not paying for music. And they're paying it with those currencies, their respective currencies. They're also paying it with their eyeballs, because we're seeing it more in sub-Saharan Africa. While they're not paying a monthly fee, they're watching ads in order to get to that music. And so the importance of what Wyclef's doing with Carnival World Music Group and the importance of why we wanted to partner with him and others is we believe that there'll be less global superstars. They'll be there, but the floodgates are now open to someone in their bedroom recording music and releasing it. And there'll be more regional stars. Without the ability to make money from their music, we wouldn't hear a lot of the hits that we know and love today. But there was money flowing for it, and it created the superstars. And there was an audience worldwide that wanted to listen to it, but wasn't paying for it. And now that they're starting to pay for it, we're seeing money flow from parts of the world that we never saw before. And that's why we see, I'm thinking of a producer. He specializes in trap music, but it's Indian trap music. There's a whole market for that right now. And so we're seeing things, it's constantly evolving and changing, and we're going to do the same with it. And even now, how artists get paid is continually changing. Just over the past few months, what we saw with SoundCloud and others. And so as money flows from the different regions, we're there. And the hiccup and what Wyclef's doing is those individuals had people that may claim to collect from them in their countries, but they never see a dime. And so they're looking for a Wyclef and Carnival World Music Group. They're looking for a reputable brand or company to collect their royalties for them. Because we're seeing a lot of the individuals over there aren't collecting a penny that's due to them because they don't know how.
Yeah, and that is the big, profound, issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that's fantastic. So Jay Condiati is a composer who has had songs featured everywhere from shows like America's Top Next Model and The Bachelor to films such as, I don't know how to say this, The Croods. I haven't seen
The Croods, yeah.
Okay, just want to be sure. And he recorded his debut EP after working with Sound Royalties last year. So that provokes a question. What are some of the ways that artists have harnessed solutions from Sound Royalties to kick off new projects?
It was great to work with Jay. He's super talented. He lives in the Pacific Northwest. And right before the pandemic, he purchased a warehouse and turned it into a recording studio and a performing arts space. He was financially sound and was set up to make it through the pandemic, but you never know what else is going to happen. And none of us guessed how long it would last, right? So he decided it was smart to use our platform to have a cushion for himself and his family. The pandemic, our funding, quarantining, everything combined was the perfect storm. It allowed him to turn to a passion project he and his wife had talked about since they were dating for years. They just never had the opportunity to put it together. And they used the funding and the time to make that dream happen. And we see that again and again. You know, the story unfolds, whether Mesa is another artist example I was talking to a friend about the other day. You know, when he came to us, he didn't have a ton of streams. You couldn't find him on Spotify. But we've financed him several times over the past few years and have had the pleasure of watching him grow and continue to grow. Initially, if you searched him, you couldn't find him. And now he's climbing, if you put that song name, to the top of the list, if there's another song with it. And we're watching his streams grow into the millions and tens of millions. You know, it's amazing to see him use our capital to self-propel his career. You know, other people choose to use our funding to build a studio or start a label or invest in creatives and build catalogs. You know, we're here for them, whether it's professional or personal reasons, but they don't have to be independent. You know, they can be signed to a publisher. They can be signed to a label and unrecouped. We're a central solution for them, no matter what their path is. One of my favorite things about what we do is to see an individual and how they utilize our platform to invest in themselves, and then get to see those results turn their own dreams into their own realities. And we're here for them every step of the way. And because of that, the way our business process works is we build lifelong bonds and lifelong friendship with them. You know, they're part of the family. They're part of the Sound Royalties family. We're part of their family.
I mean, honestly, you had me at no personal guarantees. I mean, I have watched deals not go down because of just that particular issue, especially in this pandemic, you know, crisis climate, financial climate. The banks, or at least my experience, is that, you know, personal guarantees is pretty typical across the board. So when you have an artist who may not be in a position to personally guarantee something, but has, as you say, the income or, you know, the other elements in place, this is a very solid option.
Absolutely. And even if they do have the option and they do qualify, sometimes they come to us because the traditional bank may ask for personal financial statements every year.
They may ask for it, they will ask for it. I mean, that's just the reality. Yeah.
And so sometimes it makes more sense to work with us because we look specifically at the royalty flows.
Yeah, no, I understand. Wow. Well, so there's immense value for artists to work with a team that has a deep understanding of their world, which obviously you have in your background. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, we never expected to be at the center of the royalty flows or to become an expert in them, but we have. You know, when I started in the industry, I put this little chart together and I put, you know, on one side, this is the composition and these are the royalty flows from them. This is the sound recording. This is how it's divided up. And I think it was about 6 different income streams creatives would be entitled to. And that was my knowledge of music royalties 101. Over the years, it just kept becoming more complex and more complex and more complex. And then I started to understand why nobody could explain it to me and why most individuals, even in the music industry, experts, are experts in a certain area. Performance income, publishing income, right? Masters, compositions, whatever it may be. And since we have to understand all of them and collect all the different ones, we started to build this list. And I looked at that chart and then I worked with my team and they put together a PDF. It's on our website. It's called 50 Income Streams Every Creative Should Know About and Where to Find Them, with hyperlinks. There's literally over 50 income streams that they're entitled to. You can't think that they'd be able to understand, even with expert teams. 9 out of 10 people that come to us, we find something that they're not collecting. Now, that's not a service we charge for. It's, you know, just part of our, you know, value add in working together. But there's countless streams and it's so complex, and that's put us in the middle. You know, people sign with a publisher or a label for a reason. So think about it. If they're an indie, to be able to find those 50 income streams, good luck. If they sign to a publisher or a label, they do it for a reason. One, they want to make sure their rights are protected and enforced. They want to make sure their music's heard a little bit more. And it's a valuable reason. And one of the reasons is to get introduced and connected with other creatives. And we offer that as well. You know, we certainly don't compete with the publisher. We don't compete with the label. We complement what they do. We're just the financial services in the middle. And so it's interesting to our unique position to kind of be in the center of it all, and everything kind of flowing through us is never what we expected.
So you're just another spoke in the wheel, but obviously that
Yeah.
wheel doesn't move if all the spokes aren't in it,
Yeah.
functioning properly. Wow. So bringing it home to Nashville, the city has been through a lot this past year. You know, we had the catastrophic tornado, we've had the pandemic, you know, we had, you know, the derecho wind, which, you know, just was unprecedented. So, you know, you've calculated and made it a personal decision to relocate and to lead your Nashville office. What does Music City mean to you? And how do you see live music, which is a huge part of the city's commerce and income and revenue and, you know, DNA? How do you see that how do you see us navigating through that as we move forward?
You know, Nashville's not, and I've heard before, it's the country music capital of the world. We've heard that for years. It's not. It's the music capital of the world. There are more songwriters and musicians and creatives per capita in Nashville than anywhere in the world. And for the artists that are touring, I even see it, you know, they travel through most cities and just buzz right through them, but they stop here in Nashville to collaborate. And it's important that we're here in the heart of the music industry. Live music is coming back. We're seeing shows pop up around the world happening right now. There was I think it was New Zealand had a 20,000 person show last month. You know, it's coming back. There was a New York Times article in 1919, so 102 years ago, about this opera group when they had their pandemic at that time. And they were stranded in New York, and people thought that live shows were dead and would never happen again. And people were wearing face masks. Truly happened. You can pull up the article. Within 2 years, people were in the roaring 20s, back to all the live events. And so I'm a firm believer that we will get back to the live events. We already are, and it's just it's not a light switch. It's not gonna be, okay, everybody dive back in. It's gonna be a gradual as people get vaccinated. I got my first vaccine shot. I'm excited. Once I get the second one, I'm gonna be out there even more. You know, I consider Nashville to be my home. We as Sound Royalties believe in Nashville and believe it represents the core part of who we are and what we do. So definitely Nashville is the heart of it.
Well, I understand. I made the same choice. So I understand that.
Yeah.
So it's obviously been a very dynamic change for the entire music industry. What is next for Sound Royalties?
You know, we're already the largest financial services company serving the music industry by far. But we've just started. We haven't even scratched the surface in touching the market that is there now and growing. You know, whether it's educating artists on where and how they make money and providing unique customized funding solutions. You'll continue to see us grow domestically, but also internationally. You know, we recently launched catalog sales support, and we're continually finding ways to help creatives evolve their career, and we're going to evolve alongside them. You know, you'll see the changes in the flows of money, and with that, you'll see us grow and adapt with the flows of the industry. And we're in a unique position to see where those flows are headed, a little bit ahead of everybody else to some degree. And so we try to stay ahead of it and share what we know and to continue to build those ties and the relationships within the industry.
Wow. Well, I don't have any more questions. I don't know if there have been any questions in the Q&A because I actually haven't been looking at it. But if somebody has been looking at it, it would be I think would be the time to address those.
Absolutely. I see one right here by a few people asking about what differences have we seen in paying out royalties with the passage of the Music Modernization Act. 2 points, you know, there's several points to the Music Modernization Act. The forming of the Mechanical Licensing Collective, key, and it's huge. There were so many mechanical royalties that were going unpaid for artists of all different creatives, all different levels. And they're based in Nashville, right in the Gulch. And they started in January, allowing people to register and start collecting royalties. I think the first distribution is coming up in the next month or so. But if you are a creative and entitled to mechanical royalties, I would definitely reach out to the Mechanical Licensing Collective. If you're independent, if you're assigned to a publisher, they're taking care of that. The one that I was hoping to see in terms of sound exchange was producers being able to get their sound exchange income. And while it did change the process a little bit, they still have to go to the artist to get, sign off if that wasn't taken care of in the first place. So I haven't seen much change there as I was hoping for, because I would say most producers that we see are not collecting all of their digital performance royalties, because the way Sound Exchange is set up to pay half to the artist, well, 45% to the artist, 5% to the background musicians, and the other half to the rights owner. That 45% includes the producer's share. And they're not being paid it unless they go knock on that artist door or that artist team's door and say, hey, can you sign this so I can take away from what you've been collecting and get what's rightfully mine? It's just an uncomfortable conversation. So I was hoping to see that a little more. I see a question. So how does it work? A writer works with you, but they are handled by a publisher that pays the writer. Does the writer work to pay Sound Royalties back directly, or does Sound Royalties work with the publisher admin to get the investment back? So it's not an investment, right? It's financing. We don't take ownership. And when I think of investment, and I talk to creatives when they come and, hey, invest in this project. Well, if you go to an investor, they want a percentage, right? So if you blow up, they're going to take a much bigger percentage. We work with a specific dollar amount for a specific period of time. And to answer your question directly, if they're represented by a publisher, they're represented by a label, they're represented by a distributor, whoever it is, we evaluate that stream and then work with, get an acknowledgement from that payor, and that is redirected through us, and we then pass the overflow income. At the end of our agreement, or the end of the work, we've collected what we were supposed to, or if they decide to pay us off early, that's fine. The streams revert back to them. And so that's how that one. What is the music industry's impact on the adjacent industries like hospitality and tourism? Another huge industry in Nashville. Great point. So the music industry's impact on adjacent industries is enormous, right? People are coming to listen to music. They go to the bars, they go to the restaurants, they sit in the hotel lobbies. They come take hotel rooms because they're meeting with other creatives and collaborating when they're here. They're here on tour, they're staying longer, they're spending money here in Nashville. So, the music industry is a very important part of Nashville's ecosystem. And I see numbers floating around of the impact that we have. And I think it's far greater than that. There's so many nuances where we do impact that you can't even attribute $1 to it. Sarah pointed out that producers still need a letter of direction from the artist. Correct. And I was hoping to see that change. There was so much talk about it, but they still need to get the artist to sign off on redirecting that portion of income. And that creates a very uncomfortable conversation. I got to work with this great artist as a producer. It took off, so it's worth me going after. But if I go ask him to sign this or her, this letter of direction, will they work with me again? Am I better off ignoring that stream? It's a tough conversation. And I see Kamal Malak's in the crowd. So what's your view on SoundCloud's new fan-powered royalties? Is it legit? Okay, 2 questions. So one, yes, it's legit. It's a different approach that turns everything that we've seen everyone else do on end and do things differently. So fan-powered royalties is basically, you're being paid for what people listen to. And so if you're some obscure artist and you get a small amount of streams, historically you were paid based on the percentage of the overall income that came in and the percentage of your work, which cut off the bottom people from being paid to some degree. Now, what SoundCloud is transitioning into and discussing is what if they listen to your music, you get that portion of that income stream, which is really interesting. The impact it'll have, positive or negative, is yet to be seen. I mean, think about, we talked about for years, and I've heard people for years, if you want to see an analogy to this, that if they could release music from their bedroom and upload it and get it out to the world without the need for radio play, you know, we'd have a lot more stars and this individual person would be much more successful. Well, in that time, you know, 10 years ago, we were fighting for 30,000 new songs a day, trying to fight for radio time. Today, we're seeing 40 to 50,000 new songs a day uploaded, right? So 30,000 new songs a year, 40 to 50,000 new songs a day. So how do you stand out without the marketing arm, without, you know, and people are doing it and great music's coming out. So is the new fan-powered royalties positive, negative? Yet to be seen, but it'll have impacts that we haven't even thought about. Whether it's, I won't even venture to guess. So how are innovations and new offerings in social media platforms impacting artists? Clubhouse seems to be growing in popularity with creatives. Absolutely. So, you know, Facebook for the longest time was not paying creatives for the use of their music. And it took Evan Lamberg and his team at Universal to make a stand for this. And a lot of people don't know how it happened, but what they did is they put literally hundreds of lawyers in a warehouse to issue custom takedown notices for every one of their writers and the works that they were publisher for. And they sent that over to Facebook, one at a time, one letter at a time. And it forced Facebook to come to the table because Facebook had to start hiring all these temporary lawyers to respond to each independent request for a takedown notice. And that battle lasted, I think, for 3 to 6 months. And as time went on, Facebook finally came to the table and said, okay, we need the license and pay for the right to music, right? We see other platforms that are not paying it, but they will. And music needs, it adds inherent value or people wouldn't pay for it. Right? And people wouldn't use it on their platforms. And therefore they need to pay for it. The platforms need to pay for it. And I think the music industry will evolve with it. So I think that's pretty much everything we have.